What is up, Internet? Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions! We got another Grindin episode here for you guys. I'm gonna do episode number 24. It's called Obfuscation and Manipulation, or Obfuscation Manipulation. Wow, that's intense. Alright, so we're just gonna keep grinding. I'll probably do some shopping in Diamond City, probably go do some shopping in Good Neighbor, drink a bunch of Nuka-Cola. I'm very excited for the new Fallout TV show coming out. It looks very good. Looks very detailed. I love the actor from the TV show on Netflix, Disjointed. I believe he's going to do great. The guy from Hateful Eight, you already know he's going to do good. Very excited. So we got the Silver Shroud here. We're going to get some knowledge. Let's go.
And that's one of the things about religion that we have to remember when we're talking about that makes it such a hot topic issue. Is because we're talking about law. Who gets to be God? Who gets to be God's deputies? Who is the Most High? Who is the divine authority? It's all about the claim to the Most High. The only way that somebody can be higher than us is if we give away our power. Because there's nobody, we're all equal. But we're not equal in our knowledge, so ultimately I think it does have to be a hierarchy, but it has to be a cooperative hierarchy like a bee colony. It's about what our value system is, what we care about.
Hello, Hive Mind. Today is October 21st, 2020. I am your host, Brandon Martin, and I will be hosting the show solo today, so Nate Cap will not be able to join us. But welcome to the 24th episode of the CubbyWhole podcast, where important topics are unveiled, discussed, and tested. Our website is CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. Today, we are going to be continuing the topics of mind control and weapons of manipulation. I'll be starting off from where we left the last discussion with Nate about weapons of manipulation. So if you haven't caught up with our most recent episodes, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to them in chronological order. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full tapestry of what we are trying to lay out here. So we're going to be starting off with the technique of obfuscation. Now, I did speak about this with Nathan a little bit on the last episode. I explained how obfuscation is the distortion of principle intended to hide the truth. So it is an intentional act to obscure something, to make it look like something that it is not. I explained how obfuscation is about taking something that is simple and complexifying it to the point that it is unrecognizable or indiscernible. For example, we think that adults, parents, the media, professors, academics, scholars, our teachers, and all of these other categories that we think of as a place that we should be learning the truth are inversely affecting us, because not only have they been manipulated and lied to and put under deep mind control, so they propagate the knowledge, but also some of them are intentionally doing that as well, knowingly, knowing that they are feeding mind control to people. So we confuse the idea of authority with truth. We think that authority is where we get truth. Not that we have to go on a scientific inquiry into doing our due diligence and doing the hard work to discover the truth. See, this is one of the biggest issues with everything going on. People do not put the truth first. The truth is the most important thing. My service here is to truth itself. It's to no man. I'll kneel before no individual or groups of individuals, whether from this plane of existence or this planet or other planes of existence or other planets, it doesn't matter. I will kneel before no one. And my service itself is to the whole, to the all, and it is to truth itself. So the reason why this is so important is because it plays a major factor in how we behave and how we deal with the vast amount of mind control that is directed towards us each day. So we really need to understand that putting the truth at the forefront, at the foundational essence of our everyday journey, will serve us the best, not only as an individual, but also as a species. This is how we evolve ourselves. This is how we will stimulate new neural development in the brain. This is how we will stimulate the evolution of the brain and how we will stimulate the evolution of consciousness, which ultimately will take its effect in the evolution of the brain, because, the brain is simply the manifested result of what's going on in consciousness. So if we evolve our consciousness, then our anatomy will evolve along with it. And that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to get out of this cycle of manipulation, get out of this cycle of believing in dogma, so that we can transcend into the light of a new being, into the light of a new world, and really change the way that we are creating our reality. Because we are reality creators at a certain level. We are creating our own condition right now, so we have to take that power back, because the only way someone has power over you is if you give that power to them. That's how they have power over you, and that's what they do. They manipulate you into a form of giving that power over. I'm hesitant to say the word consent, because legitimately it's not consent, because it's based on coercion, manipulation, lies, deceit. But we do, at a certain level, voluntarily give over our power. And some people voluntarily give it over even knowing what it's doing, even knowing the negative consequences. And those are some of the worst people. Mind control becomes the great dictator of our everyday being. It becomes the puppet master of our own choices each day. It dictates the way that we run our lives. And dictate simply means to repeat, to do over and over, to speak over and over again. So this is also how mind control works. It's through repetition. They do things over and over and over and over until it sticks in the minds. Why do you think they run these advertisements on TV over and over and over and over? And it's always about fear. Fear of not having something, fear of scarcity, fear of protection. There's always some type of fear tied in with how they are emotionally manipulating you. Because if they can play off your primal modes of consciousness, if they can play off of that fear, then you are very susceptible to being controlled. But we need to put first things first. That's what principle means, is that which comes first. So the truth must come first. That's before anything else. The truth is the first principle. And it should be the prime driver in an individual's mind and everyday activity. What is the truth? I see people running around and they never ask this question, what is the truth? And this leads into solipsism for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't even believe there is such a thing as truth. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're being manipulated. It's not true. They can just say it's not true. None of that matters. As long as they are getting what they want, as long as they feel comfortable in the place that they are in. It's not even just about getting what they want, like physically, it's also about psychologically. So it's about them, getting comfort. So they don't ever have to get beyond their cognitive dissonance, their ego barriers that are preventing them from actually recognizing what is going on in the world, and especially what is going on within themselves, which is what is leading to the co-creation of our current suffering. Okay, so getting back to the main topic. Obfuscation is the intentional obscuring of the meaning of the message to make it very difficult to understand. Usually using confusing and ambiguous language is the way to get this effect done. Now, some people might be like, well, why are we studying mind control? Why are we looking into these things? Isn't that something that we don't want to look into because it is negative? No, absolutely not. And I don't know how many more times that I have to say it on here, but one of the main things that we have to do in order to make a change is look at the negative, because without understanding the components of negativity, then we cannot understand the components of positivity. We cannot create a change. It's not the positive stuff that we want to change. It's the negative that we want to transmute into something positive. So the only way that we can change and transmute those negatives into a positive is by understanding their essence, by understanding how they work. If we do not understand how mind control works, then we are obviously going to be manipulated by it when we encounter it. And in our current world, we are saturated with mind control every single day. So going back to our last episode with Nate, we spoke about the obfuscation of the word occult, where if you ask most people what the word occult means in one word, what's the first thing that comes to their mind? Most people will say something evil or negative or black magic or sorcery, something along the lines that implies a negative trait. And people look at this unidirectionally. They only see things in one way. And yes, some things are one way, but when it comes to this, it is not one way. There are two sides to the occult. There is both the light occult and the dark occult. And I will further explain the differences between the light occult and dark occult in a future solo episode. So we tend to ostensibly think that authority always teaches us truth, that they have our best interest in their minds and hearts, that they are always going to give us the information that we need, because why wouldn't they? Wouldn't they do exactly what I would do or you would do in that situation when you have critical knowledge for other people that they need to make a change in their lives? Because I know I would definitely give information out that is needed to any individual, especially when it comes to things like helping to end slavery, helping to end suffering, or helping one to understand themselves at a fundamental level, understand their purpose, any of these things. Well, no. Authority, in fact, uses techniques like obfuscation to make sure that individuals are suppressed and kept down with what they know. This is what the dark occultists do. They create a power differential by either completely withholding that knowledge or obfuscating that knowledge to the point where it is unintelligible. So what we're trying to do here is learn how to deal with obfuscated information. How do we get beyond that? How do we see what is actually there? how do we penetrate beyond this obfuscation veil of ambiguity and confusing terms that are intended to manipulate us so that we cannot come to an understanding or an accurate understanding of truth? Well, I would go back to my earlier episodes about the trivium. And I personally, when coming in contact with obfuscation, use this scientific method to make sure to limit the possibilities of being manipulated. Now, obfuscation plays off of the emotions. It plays on people's gullibility and naivete. Since when an individual is in the receptive mode, they tend to be in the right brain more. Their defenses tend to be down a little bit. So they don't have a healthy form of skepticism when it comes to somebody telling them something, or especially when it comes from an authority figure. Until you realize how easy it is for your mind to be manipulated, you remain the puppet of somebody else's game. Now let's take a look at that word game. Now, on this podcast, we'll be breaking down words in two ways. The first way is etymologically, or its direct definitive definitions and origins. And the other way is through green language, or what's also called the language of the birds. I like to call it the emerald language, or synchromysticism. So the word game, let's break it down. Well, we have G first. And that G, synchromystically, is associated with the generative principle, that which we care about, where we spend our time and attention. Where are we directing our care and our actions, our thoughts and our emotions? Now, if we phonetically pronounce the last three letters as one word, we get the word aim. So we are aiming our G, our generative principle. Are we going to hit the mark or not? That mark is truth and morality. We can see now that games are about directing the generative principle. It's about directing our time and attention. It's about directing our care. And for most people, they literally are aiming their generative principle, their time and attention, their spiritual currency or energy, towards things that are not helping to end slavery or suffering. One of the main reasons why humanity continues to suffer is because it has not fully understood the underlying causality of what is manifesting that result. Or in other words, it is our inability to recognize truth from falsehood. Too many people believe in the mind control, in the propaganda, in the manipulation tactics, because they have not trained themselves to be able to understand when that is being done upon them and how to actually deal with manipulation, not only on an individual level, in your common social demographic, but also on a, political level and a geo level, at a mass level. So we need to recognize how we as individuals learn to deal with these things. For most people, they don't learn to deal with these things. They revert into means of escapism and never actually fine-tune their skills with their tools. When one fully comes to understand the truth and their spiritual eye turns on, they will see through and pierce through the haze of obfuscation. I mean, the reason why a lot of this goes unchallenged is because it goes unseen. It is occulted. And just to do a little rehash, Occult simply means hidden knowledge. That's all it means. It means hidden from the sight, hidden from the eye. And that includes the spiritual eye, too. I'm going to keep saying it over and over. We must have a generalized understanding of what the occult is and what it contains for us to ever make a change holistically in our world. So when the occult becomes common sense, we then will have the potential to be free. Doesn't mean we're going to be free at that point, because we could still have all the knowledge and lack the understanding of it. But we at least have to have the knowledge to be able to know what we're dealing with and start to understand it, and then put it into effect, put it into application, and utilize it in our daily lives. This is why certain types of information is withheld from us by the dark occultists, because they know that if this knowledge became common sense, that their entire game, their entire power structure would start to collapse. If people started to apply natural law principles daily and become completely steadfast with how they approach their principles under natural law and objective morality, the name of the game is control. I mean, they're not calling it mind control for no reason. It is literally about the control of the mind, which controls the behaviors of the individuals. So their game, where they're aiming their G at, is to control the masses by influencing and socially engineering them so that we accept slavery and the worst kinds of human conditions that we could ever experience in the face of our true human potential. I mean, anybody who thinks that this condition that we are currently in is acceptable for a healthy, growing civilization has to be out of their goddamn mind. We really have to start raising our consciousness so that we can align our thoughts, emotions, and actions, so that as we think, so we feel, and so we act. This is the way that we will create change, is by becoming a non-internal dualistic being. Internal dualism is one of the things that we are fighting, and this is what mind control does, is it tries to create a schism in the brain. It creates cognitive dissonance and a way of putting the mind into fractures, you could say. And we see a lot of this being utilized in some of the modern day mind control tactics, such as MK Ultra, where they're creating altars. Now, I will have a show about MK Ultra and the history of it and some of the other tactics that are used. Now, another big target for obfuscation obviously was the term anarchy. Now, if you go and you ask a general group of people what anarchy stands for or what it means, you're probably, especially depending on where you're at, if you go to a church, if you go to a school, if you go to a business, if you go to places like this and you generally ask your common person what the word anarchy means, they will most likely come back with the term chaos or disorder. Some may even go as far to say violence. And even beyond that, some may escalate all the way up to calling it terrorism. And to the same group of people, you ask them what comes to their mind when they hear this statement, no masters, no slaves. Guaranteed that they most likely will say freedom or something pertaining to liberty. But when we take a look at the actual definitive definition of the word anarchy, what do we find? Well, let's etymologically break it down. Anarchy is from the Greek prefix an, which means without or the absence of. And it is combined with the Greek noun archon, which means master or ruler. So anarchy does not mean without rules. It literally means without rulers, without masters. No masters, no slaves. Anarchy means the absence of slavery, or in other words, it does mean freedom by this definition. Now I'm going to pull out my dictionary and give you the dictionary definition of anarchy. Now this is coming from the American Dictionary of the English Language, Noah Webster 1828. It gives you the proper Greek breakdown of an, which means without, or the absence of, and the Greek noun archon, which means master or ruler. But then it goes directly into stating a state of society in disorder, where there is no law or supreme power, or when the laws are not efficient and the individuals do what they please with impunity. It also states political confusion. Now we can see right there how the definition is dramatically different from what the etymological definition is. The thing is that they're kind of right at a certain level. It is about disorder for the state, because what we want is a stateless society. It's about disorder for the controllers who seek to govern our minds and thus govern what we are manifesting with them. This is why people get it confused with chaos and disorder, because people rely upon government as their all savior and protector, the creator of order, when in fact it is the exact opposite. It is actually the creator of disorder and chaos, because its only means to an end is by using coercive force against the people to make them comply through fear of punishment with all of these laws and regulations. So this is how obfuscation works. They incrementally over time change the definitions in the dictionaries. And yes, this has been done. If I go further back into a good Greek dictionary, then I'm going to find a more accurate term. And I have 3 or 4 dictionaries sitting in my house, and they all give you different etymological breakdowns of this word. And you're going to find this quite a bit. So you have to use your wisdom, you have to use your discernment to be able to really come to an accurate understanding of what the definition really is. And that is by breaking down the word into its constituents so that we can find out how they work together and what are the ideas trying to be passed through the word that we are speaking. Now, it is true that the overwhelming vast majority of people have no idea what this word really means, including the self-proclaimed anarchist community. There are so many different flavors of anarchism now. It's just a mixing pot of dogma and falsehood. But just because someone claims to be a true anarchist doesn't make it true. In truth, anarchy has nothing to do with violence, chaos, terrorism, disorder, theft, vandalism, riots, pseudo-revolutions, or any action that destroys or harms another being's freedom or their natural innate rights. Anarchy, by its very definition, cannot be any forms or claims of the ownership of another being's mind, property, body, and product of labor, or any aspects of their rightful expressions as a being of nature.
All right, that's a good spot to take a break. I gotta go check on the fire. Make sure the house is staying warm. We have a fireplace in our living room that uses wood. It's a wood stove. So I'm gonna take a little break here. Don't worry, I'm gonna stay right in this spot. I'm gonna go use the bathroom and I'm gonna come right back and we're gonna finish this episode out. Thank you if you made it this far. Stay tuned and stay golden, and don't forget, always study those definitions. Study definitions, and then once you read the definition, look at the etymology. No matter what definition you're looking at, always try to find the etymology, because that's where you're going to find the real, the foundation of the word. You're going to find the principle. You're going to find where the word came from. This green language is so important. I tell people all the time, study the etymology. That way you really know what you're talking about. Alright, so thanks again if you made it this far. Shout out to W.GG. Use code BeagleEyeVision. Get 10% off your purchase. And I'm about to get some W myself here soon. That stuff is so good. Alright. Stay tuned, stay golden. We're going to keep grinding.